Hello and welcome back to It Can't Hurt to Ask, a podcast by Queensland Health. I'm Caitlin.
I'm Steph.
And I'm Alex. Thanks for joining us again as we continue to explore the early years of parenthood stage by stage.
Today we are entering that 1 to 2 year old stage. It's one of my personal favourites. You might be returning to work at this time, or your kids might be starting daycare. You might be navigating toddler moods or trying to find a new rhythm as a family.
Yeah, there's often a real tug-of-war at this stage. You want to stay close and connected, but also help your little one to explore the world and build that independence. Before we get into all of that, how is everyone going this week?
Not a lot of sleep at my place at the moment.
Oh, no.
My 4-year-old is partying at night. She's waking up a lot. It's like a whole laundry list of reasons. You know, I want to do a wee. I'm thirsty. I'm cold. My pillow fell off the bed. You know, so there's a lot happening at my place at the moment. It can make it really hard to show up with a functioning brain at work. So I'm struggling a bit with that.
Yeah, I hear that. It's funny, this 1 to 2 year, last episode we touched on kind of being in the trenches. I feel like this is the emergence a little bit out of those trenches, this kind of period. It's all that hard work's beginning to pay off, it's really nice. This week at home for us, it's been pancakes every morning. So my daughter gets up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock. What do you want for breakfast? Pancakes. And it's really fun because it's taking me back to my older daughter. So when she was younger, baking was our kind of like love language. Like we bonded over baking a lot, and that lasted for quite a few years until she just kind of grew out of it and moved on to other things. But now that this other little one is coming along and wanting the pancakes every morning, it's really making me revisit that time and remember just how special it all was, which is really nice.
Oh, that's so nice. I wish we were having more nice moments at home. But I just feel like we're playing Russian roulette with sickness at the moment. Just constantly, it feels like someone is sick. There's always one person sick. It feels like you can pinpoint the days when I'm not sick more than when I am sick. I feel like that's just this stage of life, and it can get you really down sometimes too. You just get so over it and you just want to be able to do stuff and move on, but you kind of just have to lean into it and go with the flow a bit and let go of that control, which can be a bit hard to do sometimes. But yeah, that's how we're going at the moment.
Before we begin, we want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're recording. For us, it's Meanjin, the land of the Yagara and Turrbal people. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander listeners, including parents and caregivers out there. Joining us again is Megan, clinical nurse with Waijamba Jarjums. Megan's a midwife, a child health nurse, Circle of Security and Triple P facilitator, and she's also studying to become a lactation consultant. You're wearing a lot of hats, Megan. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Let's talk about one of the biggest transition in this stage for many parents, returning to work. And I want to acknowledge not all parents return to paid work after having a child. So shout out to all of those stay-at-home parents out there. But for those who do, Megan, what kind of emotions come up for us parents and also our kids during this time?
It's so complex, I think, like that return to work. Often for parents, there can be feelings of guilt for being away from your little one, especially if you've had the first 12 months at home. It can be a big transition, and that separation anxiety, not just for your little one, but for you as well, of being away, that anxiousness of what are they going to be doing all day? I'm not going to be there with them all day like I normally am. Like every second that you're at work, you're thinking, what are they doing right now at this second? I wonder if they're having their sleep now. That's when they would normally sleep. I wonder what they're eating. Have they had their food? And you're trying to focus on your work, but your brain and your heart feels like it's at daycare with your little one. And then there's other feelings that can come up too. Excitement, returning back to work, having adult conversations in your day, having a break to have lunch and having a hot coffee maybe when you get to work, or those sorts of things as well. And that's all very normal and, so okay to feel that like excitement to have a different hat on for the day rather than just being a parent, being able to go back into work mode and be able to do that as well.
And wearing pants too.
Yeah.
Very exciting moment when you get to put that belt back on. And and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
That's made me think of something while you were just talking then, Megan. It's that sense of like, who am I again when you come back to work too? I remember this really clear feeling of like lots of people I'd worked with had been promoted and taken a step up. And it's sort of like time has gone on without you. And you really feel like you're having to play catch up. And depending on what field you work in, you might have to upskill again or learn new things. And it can be really tricky.
Yeah.
Did part of you just want to run back home?
Oh, I didn't want to return to work. So I 100% wanted to run back home. Yeah. It took me a while to feel like, oh, I like this again.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty normal feeling. So in my family, we're a little bit different. Our toddler, she's 3.5 now, but at this stage, I don't know, it just didn't feel right to send her to daycare, and my wife just wasn't interested in that. We did try it for a bit, but it just didn't feel right for us. And I know that is a very privileged position to be in. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's really like financially quite difficult, but she didn't start daycare properly until she was like 2.5. So it was quite a different experience, I guess. We found this stage really difficult as parents, and one of the most difficult stages, I reckon, because I feel like this is the first major jump in your parenting from them just sitting there not doing anything. And then they suddenly have feelings and thoughts and concerns, and they're starting to throw tantrums and they can't communicate properly. And also our daughter didn't sleep very well at this stage, and everyone's saying, well, you're doing the wrong thing because our child sleeps for 12 hours a night and we don't hear a peep. And we were like,
So unhelpful.
So tired. And, our daughter was still waking like every hour. And we were like, when is this ever going to end? Everyone told me that the baby would be waking heaps and then we'd get over that. And the baby stage was really easy for us. Yeah. Everyone said how hard that was. And we're like, that was easy. Like, what are you guys talking about? Obviously, the universe heard us and humbled us so hard. So, I think it can be a really hard time as well. And we actually found it way harder.
Yeah, once they kind of get that autonomy of self. Yeah.
So I think this age can be tricky to navigate as a parent because there's a lot of decisions you kind of have to make, and it's hard to work out what's going to be right for you. Do you go back to work? Do you stay at home? Can you afford to stay at home? Is that really not a reality? And having to make those difficult decisions that might go against your instincts as a parent, it might be really difficult to grapple with. Megan, how do parents cope with making those decisions, and especially if they're not ones that they're totally comfortable with?
Yes, it's so tricky, and you're so right. Like, so many families have to make decisions that are really hard and maybe not what they ideally would want to do. Sometimes as that maternity leave kind of runs out, we're looking at having to go back to work, maybe if you're not quite ready, just because of financial reasons. Not everyone has a privilege to be able to stay home all the time, or it could be even guilt that you want to go back to work. So it can really be either side of the coin, looking at, transitioning into that different period after your baby kind of gets to that 1 year, or even earlier in some circumstances. Not everyone gets maternity leave, and they are going back when their babies are 4 to 6 months, really. So I think in that sense, it's okay to sit with that guilt and that grief of losing that time with your little one, but just remembering that they still will be with you the majority of the time. You still have all the other hours of the day to connect, and you'll still be Bubba's primary caregiver, and sending them to daycare definitely does not have a negative effect on their attachment and bonding, and you can still work on that when baby's at home with you.
Daycares do a really good job of supporting kids in that transition. I know both my children had really amazing educators that nurtured them and made them feel safe and supported in that big transition. But what can we do as parents for those kids that might be going into care for the first time and they're feeling the adjustment? And what are the sorts of things that we can do to help a child feel safe and secure during this transition?
So the first thing would be, before they even start, to take them for a tour of their new daycare that they're going to be going to. Most daycares will do stay in plays. So where you stay with them, but they get a chance to kind of meet their educators, meet the other children in their room, get used to the toys, what it all looks like. depending on the age of your little one, trying to keep the routines consistent. So if they nap at 10 and 1 or whatever, let your educators know that these are the times my baby likes to nap. And if your baby has a bottle to go to sleep, letting them have a bottle at daycare. Or if they're rocked, like they like to be rocked to sleep, this is their blanket that they like to sleep with at home. They can take that to daycare. If they're a younger baby, wear their little comforter down your top for a few days so it's got that smell of you on it, so that when they go to daycare, they've got that with them, as well as our language around daycare when they're at home, especially for our children that are like that 1 to 2 year age. They pick up on every single thing that we say. So, even when you're just talking to another adult in the house, trying to talk about daycare positively, not saying like, oh, they have to go to daycare today, the drop-off's going to be so bad, they're going to cry. Just it's okay to have emotions. It's okay to feel sad that mummy's going to work, but I'll be here to pick you up in the afternoon and talk about that. Like, what are we going to do when we see each other this afternoon? Should we have a cuddle or should we have a big kiss? Like, should we skip out of the daycare or, what song should we play on the way home? Like, try to kind of connect through, I'm going to see you this afternoon, and what are we going to do when we have that meeting, and focus on that reconnection. The other big thing at drop-off is to be consistent, keep it short, don't stay for too long because it can just kind of make it a bit worse. I've got to go. I'll see you this afternoon. I love you so much. And leave them with their educator. Try and leave them with a safe person so that they don't look up and go, oh, mum's gone.
Yeah.
That's such good advice. Such good tips. Thank you, Megan.
Yeah, thank you. And I think as well, like, this is also where those big emotions come out. They really start having these big emotions they don't know what to do with. And as a parent, you don't know what to do with all these big emotions either. And they start like pushing those boundaries and things like that as well. And you can feel really lost as a parent thinking, what do I do? Like, how do I manage this? It feels like they wake up one day and they're just like a switch is flipped and they just pulled out the rug from under you and you're just completely lost on how to manage it. How do we manage that time with those big emotions?
It just comes out of nowhere, doesn't it? The big emotions. You're like, what happened to my little baby? Yeah. So good for them though. Like, they're expressing their opinions and their feelings and their autonomy, which is adults we want them to be able to do. So the first thing we're going to do is when they're having these big meltdowns, these big feelings, is just acknowledgement. Oh yeah, I can see you're feeling really mad. I can see you're feeling really sad. Name that feeling for them, because between the age of 1 and 2, they don't know what they're feeling. They just know that they're not feeling happy, or even if they are feeling happy, they can still have a meltdown. So helping them kind of put it into a category of where they're at. And then our job as their parent is to be their secure base, someone that they can come back into when they're feeling sad. So in Circle of Security, we teach the philosophy. If you imagine you're like a big circle and your child goes out on the top of the circle and then they go explore and then they come back in. And you'll see them going round and round and round, going out to explore, coming back, going out to explore, coming back. And it's so good for their development that they have that secure base, which is us, to give them that confidence to go out and explore their world. And then they come back when they're having that meltdown, feeling sad. And they might even say like, go away, or I don't want you, or run off to their room, and let them, if they need to kind of go through it on their own, just tell them like, I'm here when you need me. And just be there when they're ready to come back to you, because they might just not be quite ready to come back. And our job as parents is to just fill their emotional cups. Give them a cuddle when they're ready. It might just be holding their hand, or they might come back and be like, do you want to play a game? It's okay. Emotions are definitely hard to deal with. And the biggest tip is to make sure that you don't meet them in their chaos, that you are trying to be regulated yourself, because how easy is it to just go, meet them where they are and get dysregulated by their dysregulation.
Yeah, especially at that age where a lot of the things that they're losing it over are just absolutely so silly, and it's hard to not just be like, well, we just need to go. And you obviously don't say this, but in your head you're like, oh, come on, like this isn't a big deal, like let's just go. But they're in the moment and they don't have the ability to be rational or anything like that either. So we can't put our own expectations of ourselves on someone so little.
Yeah, that's so true.
I love the visual of the circle.
Yeah, how cool is that?
They're still part of the circle.
Yeah.
And you're still part of the circle. But, I mean, you could use it at any age, couldn't you, of that independence of where they're stepping away towards the edge of the circle, but they will come back.
Yeah.
I love that. It's a lovely visual.
It is good. And you can kind of imagine as they get older, the circle gets bigger. Or, you know, different children have different circles. Like some children are runners and they run away at the shop or whatever. They've got a big circle. Whereas some kind of like cling to their parents' leg. You know, maybe for that child, they've got a smaller circle.
Let's hear now from Shahedah and her husband, Sufyaan.
I came into work one day when the little one was about a year old, and one of my colleagues looked at me and she said, "Oh, how are you going?" And I said, "Oh, fine." And she looked at me and my manager turned around and they both looked at me and that didn't sound fine. And I said, "Oh, no, we've just been night weaning. Oh, how's it going?" And I just burst into tears and I just sat there and cried and they just sat with me.
Oh man, I remember.
And they just sat with me. And there was another colleague who had been in the team for literally a week at that point, and she kind of hovered like, how much do I support? I don't know this person very well. But she also then got to see how supportive the team was as well and how well they supported me. They'd been through it themselves, and they knew what I was going through, and even if they didn't, they just were happy to sit with me and let me cry until I was ready.
Gosh, that was so honest and relatable. I want to give Shahedah a hug.
Yeah.
You know, I think we can all relate to that feeling of just being exhausted emotionally and physically. I'm so glad she had such supportive colleagues to turn to in that moment.
Yes.
It shows again, like this idea that we were talking about in the last episode of your village. Your village can be your colleagues as well, and they can be there to help you. Megan, what stood out for you from what Shahedah and Sufyaan shared?
I think just that feeling of not being able to do either job to 100%.
I feel that.
You know,
Bones.
yeah. Coming back to work and feeling like you're not 100% there, and then going home and feeling like you're not 100% there either.
Yeah.
Like you're almost failing at both jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
Yeah.
And to be able to go and work, they've said they're up night weaning, so they've probably been up all night, not really slept, and then having to go to work that tired. And then knowing that after that, you've got to go pick up your baby and keep parenting again and then do it all again that night and the next day. Yeah, it feels like just a cycle, doesn't it, that you can't quite get out of. I think in that circumstance, it's okay to maybe take a step back from either work for a bit, let's just get night weaning done, or you know, maybe stop night weaning for a minute and just be able to just feed baby overnight and go back to sleep. Like, we don't have to do everything all the time. Where you can take a break, like what can be sacrificed, what has to be prioritized. Or if you are working to that capacity, it was really good that she's told her work colleagues what's going on for her at home, so that they kind of are understanding. If you've got an understanding team, it makes a big difference. To be able to kind of know what capacity you can work at for that day, and maybe taking on smaller jobs at work for a little bit while you've got a lot going on at home, or letting your partner do most of the stuff at night or of the evening, like they do all the bathing and the dinner and stuff like that. So, you know, you can try and get a bit of rest where you can. Going to bed early, maybe it's more self-care to just go to bed early when your baby goes to bed, or get those few hours consistently that you can before Bubba's up for a feed, or you're trying to wean them overnight.
It's such a good reminder to sort of take pressure off yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, it's not just your child transitioning to daycare.
Yeah.
You're transitioning back to
Yeah.
work, and it can be just as big of a transition.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really helpful, I think, and Shahedah mentioned this, when you work with people who are parents as well,
Yeah.
because they really get it. You have that feeling of by the time you get to work, you've had a whole day because, you know, you've got the kids ready, done the drop-off, come into work, and it might be 9 o'clock, but you've been awake from 5. Yeah, it's a lot to take on, but somehow we all do it, don't we?
Yeah.
It's about teamwork, hey?
Yes.
Teamwork at home with your support that you've got, if you've got any, and teamwork at work as well.
You know, not everyone's experiences are the same, are they? It sounds like Shahedah has a really beautiful, supportive workplace, but it isn't the same for everyone. It's not always easy to juggle that push and pull between your two worlds.
No, and there is the return to work for parents, but I guess in my case and many other people's cases, there's the not stopping working, and you've just suddenly got this new person in your life, and you still have to carry on your professional life as well and try and be competent and productive going through all that. And I remember around the 1 to 2 year stage was when it really began to sink in, the responsibilities I had and the priorities were really shifting for me internally. I remember specifically a morning I'd turned up to work. I'd flagged with them that I would be starting a little bit later in the mornings because we had a 1 and a 2 year old at home. The person who was like supervising just absolutely went off at me one morning for not being there early, shouting, really almost throwing a tantrum. And as he turned to walk out of the room, I called him back in, like, don't speak to me like this, and really kind of asserted myself and a boundary that up until that point I never would have thought of doing in the workplace, but it just felt to me that the priorities had shifted, and where I needed to be that morning, that was where I was. And once I wasn't needed there anymore, I came to work and I was going to be as productive as I possibly could be at work. I think that boundary setting is super important as you have children, and the juggle really kicks off around this stage, that 1 year old, things just start getting busier. I think you do get very productive at this time. You're very mindful of, I will turn up, I will do the thing, and then I will be gone because I have somewhere else to be. And when other people don't necessarily get on the same page with that, it can create a bit of friction, I've found. What's your experience with that, Steph?
Yeah, I think a bit similar to you. I know that when I went back to work, I had 6 weeks off when our first baby was born. And it's like, oh my God, my whole world is different. And you're walking into this place that's exactly the same. It's a really jarring thing to experience. And, you're really tired and you don't feel like the same person anymore. And I remember feeling really angry all the time. I just had this massive, this ball of anger inside me. I guess my tolerance had really slipped, and maybe my professionalism a little bit as well, unfortunately, but I just wasn't able to cope with things in the same way or be able to compartmentalize in the same way, because I just thought, I just want to be at home with my baby, and it feels so unnatural that I'm not there, and it just didn't feel right. And so anything that went against that really, I don't know, maybe I was in a fight or flight kind of a situation too, thinking back, and maybe it was that adrenaline as well of being I'm not where I should be. It was a really hard thing to navigate. And then fast forward to this 1 to 2 year old age, like you said, Alex, some people have really not understanding workplaces. But I think even if you do, that guilt is massive.
And when they get to this 1 to 2 and they're talking more and they can tell you, don't go, I don't want to go to school, I think that makes it a lot harder than when they're little and you kind of are making all the decisions for them without that autonomy from them, or them being able to express their feelings. Yeah, whereas they're getting a few words, especially close to that 2 year age mark, and they can really start telling you what they do and don't want.
It's not a nice feeling.
Yeah.
I remember my daughter saying, Mummy, I cried all day today. And I checked with her teachers and she had not, in fact, cried all day. But, it's really hard to remove that from your mind and think, are they okay? Are they safe? Are they happy? Have I made the right decision? And especially when it's not your decision, you just feel like a fish out of water, and you're not in the right place at the right time. And it's a really hard feeling to navigate as a parent. Yeah.
I think that's a good way to put it. Not in the right place at the right time. That was really how it kind of sat with me as well. You just feel like anywhere else but here right now. And it's tricky. Yeah. I feel like we've really done daycare in segment 1, covered a fair amount there. But what about stay-at-home parenting? Caitlin, I know you were at home for nearly 4 years, was it? How did you find that?
Yeah, I loved being at home with them. I felt very lucky. Those years with my kids at home were really incredible. At the same time, there's obviously challenges. You know, there's the isolation of being one person at home, and if you've got more than one kid, and you know they can gang up on you sometimes, and the responsibility all being on you, and that division of labor, and the feeling of you're never off the clock. You know, the job doesn't end, even though your partner's got home. It feels like your domain, I suppose, and your responsibilities over the home. And the comparison too, I had a little bit of longer time off than most people do. So I had friends that went back to work, and that comparison of my choice versus what I saw their choice was, and the feeling of, am I missing out? And what sacrifices I was making by being at home for a longer time. There's that push and pull, I suppose, between both worlds. But I really did enjoy being there when they were little. And I do acknowledge it's not something that everybody gets to do. So I felt very, very lucky. And when it came around to my second mat leave with my daughter, I really didn't want it to end because I knew she was my last baby. But those stay-at-home years were equal parts, you know, really hard, that relentlessness and the repetitiveness and the daily grind and the being at home and being alone, coupled with the joy and the privilege of being there with my kids. Yeah, there was a mix of all of the feelings, I suppose.
I guess one of the huge benefits of being at home is you see all the milestones. You hear the first words, you see the first crawling, like you really get to witness all of that. I know being at work, and maybe you found the same, Steph, is you come home and you find out about things that you wish you'd kind of maybe been there for as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Megan, what's your sort of take on the challenges and how people who are a stay-at-home parent can look after themselves?
Yeah, it can be quite isolating, I think, for stay-at-home parents sometimes. Obviously, if you're the parent going to work, like you're talking to other people all day and those sorts of things. Whereas if you're at home, like your day is dictated by nap time. Even someone messages you like, let's have a coffee at this time. It might be like, oh, I can't really do that time. Like you're on someone else's schedule all the time. And that can be quite overwhelming and isolating, I think, as well as, you know, if you've had to take a cut financially as a family, there can be a big strain there of we can't go out and do things because, you know, like we've made the decision to stay at home. So that can be a big source of overwhelm and isolation as well for a family. If like you can only really stay at home or do things that are free, that can really affect like your mental well-being. So I think trying to have those little moments that you can where you do get out of the house, even just for a walk or those sorts of things, as well as changing your idea of productivity. So being able to say, well, holding my baby for their naps today and, you know, getting to like hang out with them and be with them, you know, baking with them or whatever you're doing in your day, like that's productive too.
I know both my first wife and my second wife both changed careers after kids went back to school. So that was a real break in a way to kind of really reflect on where am I at in life? Do I really enjoy the things I'm doing? Can I reskill? So it might even be a good time if you are at home, even just to start exploring in your own mind what the potential of the future could be as well.
Yeah, the other options.
Yeah.
You know, my wife is a stay-at-home mum and has been for a few years now. And I always say to her, like, your job is way harder than mine. Like I work, but your job is so much harder than mine. And she's like, oh, your job's way harder than mine. So it's about finding what works for you. But I think if you are the stay-at-home parent navigating some of these new things by yourself a lot of the time, like the tantrums that we were talking about that start to ramp up around the 18-month mark and you're really not equipped as a parent to deal with them, how do we stay calm? Because it's the advice. That's generally the advice is stay calm, but that's so much easier said than done when you're in the moment.
Yeah, 18 months is so fun, isn't it? Their little brains just explode at this age. They just go through a big leap in their development. They start to figure out that they're their own person with autonomy. They start to want to do things for themselves, and often they can't quite do it for themselves, as well as they're just trying to communicate with us, but often they don't have the language behind them to be able to say, I don't want a blue plate, I want a green plate, right? How many times do you think you say no to an 18-month-old in a day? You know, it builds up for them over a day that they've got no autonomy. They don't make any of the decisions. They go to bed when we tell them to go to bed. They wear what we put on them. They get in the car when we tell them to. You have to wear these shoes, wear a jumper, and they don't have the language to kind of communicate with us as they want to. And this all builds up in a day for our little ones. And then they have this explosion. Yeah, this tantrum. And you're like, whoa, where did that come from? That was over like something so minuscule. But usually when they're tantruming over something, it's not about that thing. It's about a build up from the day. But tantrums are just inevitable though as well. And I think the first few times they do it can be quite triggering and like overwhelming as a parent, seeing your little one throwing themselves on the floor. Some kids hit their heads against like the wall, or like they might throw things or kick and scream, and they just like a little ball of anger. And that can be quite hard to watch. As much as it's safe to do though, we need to let them go through all that. The more we pull them out of it and try to get them back to a sense of normal, the more they're going to tantrum. If you think about it, like if something happens to you and you hold it in all day and then you want to cry, keep pushing it back, then that's when you have your big outburst. Whereas if we just let them have their outburst, usually it will last a shorter amount of time. If we just kind of let them go through those emotions without pulling them out of it and letting them do what they need to do.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think early on with my first children, I looked at tantrums and that kind of thing as a behavioural issue, like something needed to correct rather than something I needed to understand, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I guess being an older parent now and going through early childhood again much later, now I'm looking at it much more of a, okay, what's wrong? Like you mentioned, they don't want the blue plate, they want the green plate. They can't tell you that. But I found what works for me sometimes, and little one is just, if I've got loud music on, turn it off. If the fan is on above the oven, turn, like any kind of stimulus, reduce it, maybe take them out of the environment into some fresh air, take a breath. Okay, let's just work our way through. Is it this? No. Is it that? No. Once they're able to kind of communicate again, and I don't know, just find that maybe, I don't know what I'm talking.
No, it's good advice. I remember someone saying just add water. Whatever sort of day you're having, run a bath or go play in the water outside, do water play or fill the sink up.
Yeah.
Like just
Nature
add water.
is healing, right?
And giving them options, you know, do you want to do this or that? And then they can pick and have that self-direction of what they want to do as well. Yeah.
Giving them some power.
Yeah, that autonomy you talked about. Yeah, when they have no autonomy, just to give them a little bit.
Yeah.
It really builds their character. And,
Yeah.
And then you get to discover what it is they like, right?
Yeah.
It's cool.
It's such a fun age. They're coming into their little personalities and all those things. So it is a really fun age, but it is a hard age. Yeah.
And all such good reminders, everything you've said. Like they're not going from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
They might be at 99.
Yeah.
Like tips them over, you know, or all of this. And this is good advice for a lot of different ages too.
Yeah.
Just being that safe person for your kid. Yeah.
Definitely.
Megan, thank you so much for this conversation. Before we finish, what's one message you'd like parents of toddlers to take away from today?
I think for our little people, just remembering that they're learning and we're learning alongside them. And they've never been the age that they are before. So they're just figuring out the world. And we've also never had a child that exact age before in the exact dynamic that we have. So we're all just learning along the way and to not focus on perfection, but just connect together. And
I love that. And I think someone said to me once, you're growing as a parent alongside your child growing. And I just thought that's such a nice visual to think about as well, to be like, you don't have to have all the answers. Like you'll work them out together, and to just sort of like lean into that connection and prioritize that is really important. I love that. Thank you, Megan. And thank you as well to Shahedah and Sufyaan for sharing their story.
That's it from us today. And next time, we're going to be diving into life with a 2 to 3 year old. That's the big feelings, the big opinions, and big questions, especially the one big question, why? And if no one else has mentioned it to you today, you are doing a great job. Until then, take care.
Bye.
Bye.